All right, hello everybody. Thank you for making this live stream. My name is Ethan Pressberg. I work on the product side of ProcessMaker. So I'm fortunate enough to work on all these awesome and innovative projects. I have done this a lighter weight version of this before, and I'm more than happy to and excited, in fact, to get into the nitty gritty. So before we get started, just want to put a couple of prerequisites slash disclaimers. This is mostly intended for technically minded folks, those who are familiar with coding, especially around ChatGPT. And we're going to be diving deep into the code, I hope. And I also want to mention that we did look into the from the last live stream, and I hope, fingers crossed, that the chat will work now, even if you're not subscribed to us or whatever. So please feel free to chat. I love it when people jump in and just start chatting with me. It makes it more enjoyable and dynamic. All right, so with that out of the way, there's a couple of things, and I need to get out of the habit of saying. So let's first start off with what can ChatGPT do, right? So, or Chat GPM as we're calling it internally. Again, I would love somebody to throw out a cooler name. I'm not that original in that sense. So, all right. So now this is a little I said again. I'm gonna create a swear jar for every time I say Maybe then I'll get my folks off my back. Okay, I said it again. So let's see. Chat. I just checked it before we started just to make sure. But Chat GPM, what are you? Let's first start with that. See if the conversational aspect of it is functional. And we can also check the logs. I have the logs on the side here so we can tell, how it's going. And if there's any errors, this is a live stream. I expect there to be problems that we'll have to work through and debug. So he says, I am Chat GPM, an office assistant created by ProcessMaker. I am here to help you with your tasks and make your work easier. That's nice. So this is our implementation of an office assistant. Now, what can you do? So ideally, we would have that something conversational, but for now, actually, I said it again. We just recently, this week actually, had a hackathon internally at ProcessMaker, and it was amazing. I personally had an amazing time. I will admit I was pretty much carried by my team. I had an emergency I had to take care of, so but the team kept going on, and they were amazing. I was fortunate enough to work with the most talented engineers, some of the most talented engineers in our organization, which is just it's awesome. So what did we do? Well, I hope we'll be able to create some videos out of the presentations, but what our team focused on was using natural language, as we do with large language models and GPT, to generate something, right? In this case, we wanted to generate a BPMN 2.0 compliant diagram. And for those not aware, BPMN that was a fancy way of basically saying creating a workflow process that ProcessMaker actually understands and can import it, and it's like a template, except that it was generated by AI and it's ready to go. So let's say that I wanted to just have ChatGPT or ChatGPM, rather, suggest a process for me. So let's just give it a simple thing, create a process. And we can see that we receive the prompt, and there's an error. Like I said, there's always going to be an error in a live demo. So now we get to dive into the code. So that's at line 126. So let's jump to 126. So this was, let's see. Well, let's print out, what was the error again? It was null. Okay, so that's, I was just running into that before. So let's try printing these guys out and let's see what that does. It's probably because it's in a channel, but let's see. So if you're familiar at all with Chat GPT, we've got you'd recognize the response. So you know in a moment I can show the prompt that I'm using, but it is returning correctly what I expect the classification of hackathon, because this was the branch that we did for that. And then, but the second time it does not work. This literally worked 2 minutes ago, I promise. There it is again. So the problem is classification object is null. However, it shouldn't be, because we've got choices text, right? Completion, which is choices 0 text. And then we've got, oh, it's got a comma there. I don't know why it does that. So while I'm here, this is the prompt. So I'm giving it its role. You are Chat GPM, an office assistant created by ProcessMaker. You are very helpful, and always try your best to help the user, and still still strictly adhere to the following instructions considering the following classifications. So you can see that's where we got hackathon, and if you're just chatting with it, it's a chatbot. Examples. So this is where we do what's called few shot learning. So I'm giving it a couple of examples for it to understand how I want it to classify. So pretty much, you know, unless it's a conversation, I want it to, in this case, classify as a hackathon. In the previous demo I gave, or the live stream I think, or ProcessCon, this was the one I used. So we had a couple more classifications: workflow, Salesforce, Jira, forecast. Forcecast? Maybe that's not. Yeah, that's a bug. Or chatbot. So, and then we gave the example. So it's the same concept. You know what? I think this might actually fix it now that I thought about it. Let's just say dummy var, because I think it's not doing it because of it adds the comma as it does here. Again, ChatGPT is still can be very finicky. So let's see if that did what I thought it did. Create a process. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's look at the logs. Still getting that error on line 126. And if we got coders in the crowd, please help me out. I love it when people help me with my code. I could also ask ChatGPT, honestly, oh no, it did work. It just took a while. Okay, good. There we go. So it worked. I don't know why I sound so surprised. Okay, so AI Maker, that's kind of what we were calling it. So based on your input, here are some ideas, and there's a create button here that if you click it, you should be able to create it. And this is the actual process map that's generated. This was done in a 2-day hackathon, so forgive the poor lines and all that stuff. Just the fact that we're able to generate the process that was created by the artificial intelligence, I think, is amazing. This is just a conversion to PNG. So the actual process it looks good. I don't have access to the instance where it's being generated, otherwise I'd be happy to show it to you guys. So let's switch now over to the other classification. Actually, I can't do that because I need to set up a whole bunch of other things. But I can walk you guys through all the steps, because it's really the difference between this version and the version that I had before for the previous demo is really just that that just has fewer functions because we were being focused for the hackathon, obviously. But like I was showing, I've got my set of prompts here. I worked through. I'm a big Iron Man fan. My favorite superhero. So one of my lifelong dreams is to create Jarvis. So when I first started this project, I figured, well, let's make it Jarvis, and so I did that. But eventually, after iteration, this seemed like pretty good. I think I still can improve my few shot training, definitely, but it works and it does the job. So how do I use this? So I'm using it in a multi-prong approach. So first I'm sending the okay, let me start from the beginning, from the very beginning. So we've got an API. Now, where does the API get defined? So before I also continue, just bear in mind this is a Laravel application. So anything Laravel is generally applicable here. Unlike Gulliver, for those that remember it. No shade on Gulliver, but yes, shade on Gulliver. What am I looking for? I am looking for the routes folder, right? Because I did it special. I put it into a config file instead of a routes folder. Okay. So the way Slack works, I should probably talk about that as well since we're integrating with Slack. So Slack requires just a single endpoint for the event subscription API. You can use webhooks, but I found this to be better for our use case. So in typical Laravel fashion, it makes a post to the Slack endpoint, to my API controller and the Slack function, which is right here. So if we scroll up, so this is the Slack controller, constructor, defining some basic things, and then we're looking for Slack function. Oh, right. No, sorry, my bad. It actually defaults to index. That's right. So it comes into here. This is the main point of entry for the application. So I'm not going to bore you guys and go through line by line, but this is the primary function where everything comes from. So what you can see is, after we qualify, so the challenge. This is something that if you haven't done much development with Slack, then you may not be familiar. So I'm just going to get the URL here just to kind of show you guys what I am referring to. So if you create a Slack application, there's a lot of configuration that you can do. So under event subscriptions, after I've set it all up, I'm using ngrok in order to be able to reverse proxy the API publicly back to my machine so I can do local development. That was a pretty cool way that Slack had a tutorial on. But you can see once it hits that, it goes to the API version 1 and then to my Slack endpoint. And then once it hits that, so when I put it in there, you can see here it says it will send a challenge, and I need to return whatever the challenge was. So that's why here I get the qualify request, and then if it's appropriate, then I return the challenge. Otherwise, we just continue. So in a normal message scenario, user sends a message, map the payload of the incoming event for only the relevant data I need, strip out if it's in a public chat, like or in a channel rather. We want to strip out the bot ID since it prepends the bot ID when it sends that message. I hope everybody is following along because I don't see any comments or if we didn't fix the comments issue. But please reach out, and if anybody watching this would love to just make sure that the comment system works. Okay, so then we basically take out, right, so we take out the bot ID from the message so that it doesn't mess with our prompts. Create the options array to send to our what I consider the brain of the application, since this is again only the Slack controller. So we then call Chat GPM's index primary function. And then here, I'm when I edit this, I'm going to go back and I'm going to count every single that I said and do something about it. I don't know. Maybe if I remember the next live stream, I will let you know what it was that I said. Oh, Terrence, thank you for letting me know that the chat works. Awesome. Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, so I'm storing the chat history because data, right? Why not collect it? It also enables me to, down the road, create a chat bot that is like Chat GPT, where it maintains context, and I could say, well, I didn't like that. Try again. And by that, it'll know because I'm also posting the in the prompt the actual history. That's a more advanced topic though. So then we get the prompt. I did it this way because I noticed there was a bug where if it didn't have a proper stop sequence in the prompt here, then it could do some funny stuff. So I just always add a semicolon at the end of there. And yeah, and so just, for logging and stuff, logging the prompt, and then we call ChatGPT. So since I've got many different prompts and I've been playing around with them, I actually developed a little tiny function to just, read the prompt. And we do that in the constructor, I think, here. So this prompts, the property prompts, is load prompts of the current directory into the prompts. And we can see that is right here. And we're basically just looking for any file within the prompt directory, and we're giving it the key of the file name without the txt, and that way we can simply reference it, whichever prompt we want to use. So we do our pre-prompt, if you will, and then we add the user's prompt, so that it is the combined prompt of our prompt engineer that we created, as well as what the actual user is requesting. And we pass in the model. We're using DaVinci. Temperature, since this is a classification, I don't want variations, the length, all that extra stuff. And we're just logging here for debugging some stuff. Here we create the, I said again, the classification object, and we're basically getting this is effectively JSON that we're getting. If we were to take another look here, we see that the text, I have it created as JSON. So therefore, we're decoding that, and then we're saying, I know I could have done this in far fewer lines, but just for simplicity. So getting out of the object the classification value. And in this case, it'll be hackathon or chatbot. So if it's hackathon, then I created a hackathon class and an index function and passing the prompt. And if I come into here, then I can see how we're kind of basically, this was the hackathon part where I actually forgot about it, but the reason why this is embeddable is because it's a public URL and it is actually in S3. So I guess since it's in Slack already, there, yeah, it has the S3 URL. Does it redirect me? No. Okay. Well, let me do this just to see if this actually does work. I'm pretty sure it works. And it's pretty cool because I didn't talk about that. We did the S3 integration. Oh, no. Obviously not. That's not how you do it. Where am I? Well, anyways, it works. That you can see that it's there in S3, and sometimes it's hard for me to think on the spot on a live stream, so forgive me. But this is in S3, so that's what you see here. We're using Laravel's. I actually blown away how simple and easy this was, to be honest. Because with Laravel, I didn't have to configure or literally set anything up other than in my environment. I obviously put my S3, credentials and stuff and the authentication. But aside from that, all I had to do was say I want to use the S3 disk that we have and just, put this file there. And I can even add a thing there called public, and it makes it publicly accessible as opposed to private, which is awesome, I think. And then I get the URL, and then I put it as part of the payload and format the response. And in this case, I just generate. So what I actually did is I went to Slack's block UI, Slack block UI. I don't want it to load for forever. So if you've ever done any Slack development, this will look very familiar. This is what I did to kind of generate the template, the meat and bones of it and everything. And once I was happy with it, then I copied the JSON that I made and converted it into a dynamic PHP created JSON string, as you can see. And then I'm just returning that JSON and returning that back to class GPM. And here we create a array type of hackathon, because if it's depending on what kind of a classification in the past, I've wanted to have different ways or means of rendering in Slack. So for example, if I wanted to use BlockKit, I could do BlockKit. If I wanted to just do a straight up markdown text, I could do that. I was just really trying to think about this for future proofing. And so in this case, it is a block, and I pass in hack, which is what I got from the hackathon class, and I add it to the console so we see what we got, and store it in the database as well. And then we return the response back to Slack. So that's in the Slack response. And now you know the Slack response has two associative array values, block and type. And we're also passing the channel in here so we know how to respond back. And then the rest is pretty straightforward. It's just sending a DM to the Slack API, to the right API with the right format and schema, and that's pretty much it. That is the source code. Let me see. I'm happy to take any questions. Let me see if there's anything else here that's worth mentioning. So these are the modules that I've been working with, and controllers, and we looked at the Chat GPM controllers. Or anything here else that's interesting? I mean, verify Slack token, that's kind of standard. So this was in a next version, I want to do something like being able to add to ProcessMaker the ability to synchronize users. So, we've got a lot of integrations, like, with Active Directory, with Google, with others, where we can simply sync all the users into ProcessMaker so that all the users in ProcessMaker don't need to necessarily sign up or do anything. They're just there, or use Slack even as a single sign-on, which we do support since we use Laravel Socialite package. So I thought it'd be cool to get that, but when I created it, I forgot to add to the list before it got approved by corporate, the list of to be able to get the list of users. So it wasn't a high priority, so I let it slide. But I would like to get that done soon, which would be pretty cool. And then I can also, instead of storing the user ID in the database, which is what I'm doing currently, which we can see here in my migration file, I'm storing the user ID. I would love to store the username because user ID doesn't really tell me much. I got to match it, obviously. But I would love to replace this with username or add username. So that is kind of the reason why I thought in the first place it would be a cool idea. Okay, so that is the controllers models. Like I said, I just showed you the migration file for that one. It's just one to keep track of the history for future. Execution timer, I was just curious how long things are taking. So actually, I use this. I made this with Chat GPT. Actually, I told it what I wanted and what I was trying to do, and it just generated this class for me. I did not change a single character. In case you can't tell, I love ChatGPT. I love LLMs. They're awesome. So I got my OpenAI key and configuration in there. Prompts, service provider. I did actually create some tests as well. This was pre-hackathon. This would fail now, but these were the use cases that I was supporting previously. So I would run these before a demo just to make sure everything is kosher and works fine. And that is all she wrote, I think. Yep. So I will pause it here and see if anybody has any questions or anything I can answer. More than happy to. Oh, wow, I did not fix this. Well, sorry about that. Let me change this to be over here. And I will give it a moment or two for people to see if there's anything that they can think of that they want to ask. And if not, please make sure, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And would really appreciate a like for the video, not for me because I want to be liked, which I do, but because it helps the YouTube algorithm and it helps other people get the message out there and everything. So the more we can all do to share and to promote, learning and stuff, which is what I'm trying to do here. I'm sharing with you guys the source code and how we did the integration. I think it's just, we're an open source company, and so that's kind of our strategy. So if you can like and share, great. That's more learning for everybody. So I don't see any questions. This is cool. I hope people found this useful and helpful. Oh, there's a question. Could you replace it with a unique UID? Do those do those apply to PM4 users? Trying to see if I can understand what you mean, Lewis. Could I replace what with a UUID? Give Lewis a moment to type, since there's also often delays in the stream and chat. All right, well, Lewis, if you want, please feel free to add it as a comment or reach out to us at ProcessMaker. Info@processmaker.com will get it to the right people. But if you can just elaborate a bit more when you do send that mail or contact. You can also reach me on social. I'm always responding. Can feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. But if you do, please just give me some context, because, as you guys know, I'm sure you all get tons of spam from people too. I'm on Twitter. I'm on GitHub. I'm on my email address is ethan@processmaker.com. And I'm always happy to connect and to reach out. We also have actually an open source Slack channel or Slack team if anybody's interested. Happy to share the details of that as well. And with that, I'm going to close this live stream, and thanks everyone for your attendance. And I hope you guys have a magical weekend. Thank you. Bye-bye.